Hello and welcome to the Film Ireland podcast, celebrating filmmaking, storytelling and cinema across the island of Ireland. In today's podcast, we are delighted to speak with director Bonnie Dempsey and writer and show creator Rodney Lee about their fantastic series, The Unreal, as their second season is about to air on RTE on the 26th of October. So chatting to them is our in-house horror expert and contributor, Conor Bryce. So make sure to check out his 31 Days of Halloween, a spooky list of recommendations on filmireland.ie now. First, have a listen to the trailer of The Unreal here.
Ding, ding, ding. We're the Kellys. We're checking in.
Credit card, please.
Do you have a ghost? Of course we have a ghost.
They've made a movie about it.
Ghost boy.
That ghost doesn't stand a chance against the Kellys.
The manager is keeping the ghost boy prisoner.
I don't care.
I'm really scared right now.
Let's get as far away from here as possible.
No, if we run now, we'll never stop running.
Bonnie and Rodney, thanks so much for chatting with me today. I want to really dig into The Unreal. It's been amazing to watch it. Like I said, it's been a real great experience for me. But before we do get into it, can you tell me just a bit about your work together? How did you meet? How did it lead to your work together on The Unreal?
Well, I first met Rodney in the canteen on week one of film school in IADT almost 30 years ago. I think that was when we met first. Isn't that right, Rodney?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and we've been pals since then. And over the years, we've worked together in many different ways. But we started making, I guess, what's the first project we did together since college, Rodney? Would it be Not More Deadly?
Yeah, that would have been the first one. Certainly with me as a writer and you on the production side. When was that now? How long ago? That was after college. Yeah, so over the years, I guess we worked on a few different, mostly kids short films. So I would have written them and Bonnie directed them. But I guess, yeah, it is that relationship in college. Like, I don't think we worked as like director, writer in college at all, did we?
No, like I operated the camera for your short film, and college short films are great fun because you get to try out different roles and different dynamics, and different combinations of who you'll get on with and who you won't. And interestingly, the director of photography that we always work with, Tom Comerford, was also in our gang in college.
Oh, okay.
And our business, yeah, and so our Die House Films, which I run with my husband, who was also in college, David O'Sullivan. So he was in the same gang, a couple of years ahead of us. He is the executive producer and all-around video kind of media savior of this project. Everything from the genesis of the idea to like currently right now, he's literally delivering series 2 to RTE. So he was also in college. So there's a lot of cross-pollination between a core group of us who would have crossed paths in college on various different short films.
For anyone that hasn't caught it yet, I've gone up absolutely tore through season 1 and then season 2. I was lucky enough to get a sneak peek at it as well. Of The Unreal, it's fantastic TV. Could you tell us just a little bit about the premise? The kind of what went into season 1.
So yeah, I guess the genesis of it was Bonnie who came to me and said, "Do you have any idea for like a kids drama that we could apply to RTE for?" So the idea was mostly just to create something that, as a kid, I would have liked to watch on telly. And I loved when I was young. I loved weird, and kids TV was so much weirder in the 80s than it is now, I think. Like, and even stuff like Doctor Who and The Twilight Zone, and maybe partly it's just you were allowed to watch these things, which you probably shouldn't have, been. But I remember, like, as well, a long time ago when we were in college, Bonnie, we went to some RTE talk by, I can't remember who it was now, possibly Jane Gogan, but I may have that wrong now. But I asked her a question. There was a Q&A, and I asked her a question, would RTE ever fund like sci-fi or fantasy? And she basically said no, because it was too expensive and too niche. So actually it was nice then, decades later, to be able to go, no, actually we'll try and make an RTE sci-fi fantasy show, mostly for kids, but for family audiences, really.
Yeah, that's it. Really kind of comes across in the season 1 and in season 2 as well. Just that, like, that real. I'm a child of the 80s myself as well, so to recognize that real kind of dangerous feel to it, where it's just a little bit. It's not too scary. A little bit scary. It's a little bit. It works really well.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that's sort of what I didn't necessarily say, Rodney, write me a horror. I'm a total wimp, like when it comes to horror. I literally watch like this. And actually, a lot of the time I have to watch like that because with my fingers in my ears, because anything overly visceral, I have a kind of reaction to. But Rodney wrote a horror that for me is perfect snuggling up material. And any like I would literally watch the ploughing championships or paint dry if it meant that you could get kind of skin to skin, side by side, snuggle time on the couch with them. And that's kind of what that audience was in our minds all the time. When something gets scary, they get a little bit closer to you, and like that's really, I think that's kind of missing from was missing from our schedule, from our public broadcasting schedule up to now. Yeah, the idea that you could make, like, this is a bit of not a rant, but like kids TV seems to have been considered something that has to be made as a pillar, one of the pillars of public service broadcasting. You have to make a certain amount of children's output. It doesn't generate revenue. You can't wrap it up in branding and sponsorship. It just has to be delivered. So it doesn't make money. So there was this kind of unspoken feeling that that's how kids TV was treated for a while, especially when they cut the really hardworking RTÉ Kids department, the in-house department, who would make amazing programs, with a tight deadline, a camcorder and some double-sided tape, and they would be sent out to make amazing programs. And then overnight, that whole in-house department was culled, and that left children's program makers in Ireland with a feeling that there wasn't a lot of love. Thankfully, we have a great commissioning team in RTÉ Kids. They're a tiny department punching well above their weight, and now commissioning with braid stuff. So we were always banging on about the idea that, like, just because it's made with kids in mind doesn't mean it's just kids TV. I mean, all the things we grew up with, everything from E.T. to Raiders of the Lost Ark, like that would have been classed kids TV. So we wanted to make something that was dark, scary, had a good story, like was clever and looked nice, actually was really important for us. And it can be all those things and sit on RTE1. So thankfully, somebody in there decided, which was great for the genre, let's say, for the department, for kids, RTE Kids, to have a program go out on a kind of a Sunday evening in a main slot showed a real commitment. And thankfully, there are more dramas now made through RTE Kids that are occupying that kind of main Sunday evening family slot, and it's great. Like, and we're delighted about that. And long may it continue. I hope, whoever's doing it, like, it's important. Yeah, that's my little soapbox moment.
When I was, thinking up of these questions and thinking of stuff like E.T. came to mind, stuff like Raiders of the Lost Ark, the Goonies, and stuff that I grew up on. That you're right, like it's kind of lost from a lot of content. It's either a lot of stuff nowadays is either too much that you couldn't watch with your kids, or it's kind of dumbing down a little bit, and they would kind of see through it. It's really hard to get that kind of sweet spot.
Well, it's because of the Netflix generation. Kids are now being fed quantity over quality. So let's give them 30 episodes of some drivel, right? Most parents won't endure it. Or a lot of the Irish drama that's commissioned is like dark, just not really family viewing, because whatever the themes are too adult. But what we know is kids want to watch horror stuff. They want to watch scary stuff. They want to say to their friends, "Oh, I've watched a really scary thing," or they want the experience of being scared. But often what's available to them is completely inappropriate or just not safe for them. Some of the themes are dark. At the same time, I have a 13-year-old girl who'd happily sit down and watch stuff that's really way too adult in its themes. But Rodney Rodney knows what the kids like. Is well able to write about the darker themes.
The heart, I think, is missing from a lot of stuff. I think that it has to have that heart at the middle where it can be scary, it can be a little bit, maybe even too scary or a bit too much. But if it has that heart, if it has that kind of relatable center to it, it can get away with a lot more. And I think that's something that as well, like when I was watching it, and you talk there about, E.T. and stuff from the 80s as well. Something that I found that it really tapped into as well from that era was, the cast is brilliant. They're real ensemble cast across the board. Really, really great performances. But the two kids in particular, they have that real Spielberg charm to them, where they're great actors, like they're great performers, but they have that real relatable side to them where they're not precocious, they're not theater kids, it's almost like I think it's something that is again is lacking a bit these days as well, where you have these YouTube shows and stuff like that where it's all about the big performance, the big grandstanding. I think they have that real relatableness to them where it kind of draws you in. They're real. They felt like real kids. The way back in the 80s, like E.T. with that family and the Goonies and stuff. They weren't perfect. They were flawed. They had issues. They had things that they felt were wrong. Things that they felt they had to kind of battle against. And I think going maybe to the casting process, picking those two kids, was there something in particular about them that really shone through, or something that you looked for that you got from them?
I didn't know what I was looking for. I mean, I was looking for a good fit actually, and tapes come in, and then you meet a lot of kids, and you never know till you read them together. Do you know what I mean? Until you do kind of, like like chemistry reads, like, and do they look like a family, or do they have mannerisms? I mean, they don't really look like a family, but actually, when they look scared, they all look exactly the same. They're very convincing as a family. The thing is, they all did like phenomenal auditions and phenomenal reads, and really brought things to life in a way that I didn't even realize was there. But as ever, all the clues are in the script. They're always in the script. And they each in their own way would have found some little tiny note of description. And Rodney's screenplays are very economical, but every word counts. Like there's no fat there. So they each, I guess, in their reads or in their initial cold interpretations would have presented something that they just found in the script and made me go, oh, I actually didn't realize that. They're so clever. Tennant, for instance, I mean, he's IMDb pages as long as your arm. He's done great work with great directors and great co-stars over the years. He is like, he's fully formed, amazing professional actor who can do anything. I think he's not great at hurling, but that's it. She's very good at everything else. Kate is just like so good at embodying, a sassy 16-year-old girl with, issues like her personality gets completely stolen by her phone. And at one point in series one, the caretaker asked Kevin, why is she speaking like an American? She's like really, the nuances she brings are brilliant. Catherine, who plays Mary Kelly, I had worked with Catherine years and years and years ago inside in RTE Kids when I worked. I would occasionally go in and do it like 6 or 12 weeks on jobs in-house in RTE, and she was one of their presenters, and we were sent out to do I don't know how many really strange items. Just me, a camera, and Catherine go out and make X amount of minutes of TV and bring it back ready to go for tomorrow. And she is amazing. Like she is the safest pair of hands. She will throw herself feet first into any challenge. And because she has the live experience, she just can feel the fear and do it anyway. She's like a dream to work with, and she's a dream to be around, actually. She really is the glue that binds the cast. And then Joe, we first met Joe when he played a small but important part in a film that Rodney wrote, that my husband Dave directed, called Moore Street Masala. And it was a 5-minute film board, short, they were called. Irish Film Board at the time commissioned a series of 5-minute musicals, and Joe played a small part in that. He was really young and really determined to get the part, and he doorstepped us and convinced us to give him this part, and he was brilliant. And ever since then, I've kind of watched his output. Like he's really prolific, really hardworking. You'd say to him like, would you have a comedy idea for a sketch for this? And boom, here's 10 ideas. He's like really quick thinking, really generous, and always up for adventure. So I was worried, would he fit the other cast? And somehow, oh my God, he was amazing. Like I love Joe. He's got a great kind of Peter Sellers pathos to him. I just am mad about them all, actually. I'd love to just go on holidays with the Kelly family. See what happens. They're all amazing. Like,
They're all great actors, but they've got real great comedic chops as well. Like just the timing and the delivery of the gags in it is so good. And then going into season 2 as well, like it's great to see them grow, and get to grips with the characters, and they seem more comfortable in the roles, and just like they seem just like a family. Like you're watching this family grow and kind of and relate more and kind of get to grips with who they are. Was that something, I suppose, going from season 1 to season 2? I suppose for you, Rodney, like the writing process for that, was it something that you found easier going in once you kind of got the grounding of the established family and the established kind of base idea? Was season 2 easier, or was it even, adversity? Was it harder because you were having to kind of think, I have to top it, I have to do better.
Well, it was easier in one way in that I knew the actors and I could see what they could do, and I thought, wow, they can do so much more than I've given them to do. So in some ways, I think season 2 is almost more of an ensemble piece, whereas the first series was a bit more focused on Kevin and Kevin's journey. Whereas in this one, everyone has a bit more to do. But to be honest, the second season was much, much harder to write than the first one. I think because, like you say, we want the characters to evolve and we want it to continue on from the first one. So it's kind of easier, I think, to write that blank slate when you're just starting the story, but then to actually move it forward and show a bit more different depth and a bit more different levels, and even to juggle all the characters and give them something to do. I did find it a bit tough now, to be honest, at times, but I think we pulled it off in the end.
You talked there about the importance of having that kind of those scares and having that, bit of danger about them, where it's not just, dumbing down to kids. It's adding a bit of fear, a bit of frights to it to kind of to keep them on their toes, I suppose. Something else I found about both seasons as well. Along with that, you're not afraid to look at real issues. They're not a perfect family. They're not just this cookie cutter group that have no problems, have a villain that they have to defeat, and on they go. Like you're looking at, real issues. Like there's in the season 1 the dad with depression and the fact that he's refusing to go to therapy or acknowledge it or deal with it. The kids then with their trying to fit in, they're trying to kind of find their way and find their fit. And then with the mom, she's having to juggle all that, but she's got this high pressure, stressful job where she's trying to kind of balance that with what's going on with her family. Was that something that you set out to include, deliberately, or was it something that was kind of naturally part of the process?
Yeah, I think like we were saying earlier about like a lot of kids' TV is kind of dumbed down a bit, and in a way that it wasn't. Say, if you go back and watch ET, the family dynamic is actually quite hard. It has quite a hard edge. So I think we did want to bring back a bit of that and just have a family that's a bit more like, well, like my family, let's say, because I would have been watching these things as kids, mostly maybe American shows, where it was all very happy families, and you just go, yeah, my family isn't like that, or we don't talk like that, or relate to each other like that. So I think it was partly wanting to bring back a bit more reality of a family that isn't just like smiles and hugs every single day. And definitely like in terms of well, for myself, like it was important to bring in these mental health issues, because I did have like growing up, my mother suffered from mental health issues, and again, as a kid, I'd be watching kids TV, and there'd be nothing that spoke to that kind of thing. So you do feel a bit more alone. I mean, there were, it wasn't that we wouldn't talk about it in the family, but it was, it was mostly a taboo subject. And I just think, like, for kids these days, especially these days, I think it's good to feel that, like, no, you're not alone. Other people are going through these similar things, and it's okay to talk about them, and that there is, light at the end of the tunnel, and you will come out, and things will get better. So that was, I think, an important theme we wanted to include.
And something else, I mean, that this is something that we don't see a lot of, and unfortunately now, especially in horror, we're seeing a little bit more Irish horror kind of come through, where we had the first language Irish language horror coming through and stuff like that. The fact that you're, from the get go in season one with the Puka, and then I don't want to give too much away, but in season two, it's similar villain as well. You're delving into Irish folklore for these ideas and these things, which is great. It's not American. That's not British, or yeah. They're very very Irish themed villains, which I loved from the get. It's just like, this is amazing. We're not short of a few like stories, folklore stuff that we can really kind of delve into. Again, was that something you both found like really an important thing that you wanted to include, or was it more a natural process in the creation of it?
Well, Rodney, you can talk about why you included it, but I can talk about how glad I was that you included it because for me as a director and also that we're producing this, like it's really fun to take the idea of Halloween, let's say. I mean, Halloween is never overtly mentioned in either series, but they're definitely Halloween stories. Okay, where does Halloween originate? Samhain. There are stories. So even though there are slightly Spielbergian elements to it, and this kind of retro vibe of what is a VHS tape, and even though we're tapping into and even our little hero wears this kind of red varsity jacket, you may be forgiven for thinking initially that this is a kind of American-esque nostalgia show, but actually we wanted to make what we really leaned into the idea of Samhain being a thing that we can reclaim for our own kids. So in series one, we meet the Puka. I mean, the Puka is an inherently Irish trickster, mischief maker, who like Samhain, originated, let's say, I mean, a lot of the Celtic nations have their own version of the Puck or Puka, or even Shakespeare has Puck in Midsummer Night's Dream. They're all the same guy. They're the mischief maker, that part of a kind of a shared folklore, but very much Irish. In season two, without just a mini spoiler, but it happens in the first episode. Let's say Kevin encounters his fetch, and the fetch is a kind of the mythical notion of a fetch is it's your doppelganger, evil twin. But we see it in everything from Black Swan to, like it is a trope, a storytelling trope. And the fetch, the notion of a fetch or a vision or can be traced back to stories like The Town. Like so its origins are there. Like, and we talk about potential further series in future, but there is such a rich, untapped like mine there for Irish mythological characters to have their day in the Unreal universe. But yeah, like that I found that really interesting and exciting thing that Rodney offered up to us on a plate, fully formed and beautiful.
But no, definitely, I think it's because again, we don't just want to watch. You can just turn on an American show if you want to watch an American show. We want it to be homegrown and relate to Ireland, And well, definitely, as Bonnie alluded to, if we get a third series, we do have a great idea for continuing the Irish kind of folklore character. But yeah, no, it's like it does drive me crazy of kind of like as a writer and as a kind of somebody who loves fantasy, that there isn't or there hasn't been like a real big budget, say, Irish fantasy, because there's so much amazing stories, and it's great that like in horror you can do it a bit better with low budgets. But in terms of like Cuchulainn or The Tain or any of these kind of Ulster tales, there's like so much potential there which is untapped.
It's something, yeah, like it's something that I think about with horror as well, where you have, you could say what's a real quintessential British horror. The Wicker Man, or what's a real quintessential American horror like Halloween or The Exorcist. What's quintessential Asian like The Ring and stuff. We don't have a real. You couldn't name a real quintessential Irish horror. I mean, no, recently there's been a lot of great work being done, but even back in the day, it's like there's nothing there that. And why is that? It's like we've got this huge folklore,
Yeah.
library to choose from, and Halloween came from Ireland, and it's just bizarre that it's not something that we've really kind of mastered.
All I can speak about is the funding of kids stuff. I believe, or at least I felt for years that there was a kind of an inferiority, that we can't compete with the likes of Marvel and Netflix and Disney to win the hearts and minds of our own audience. And that's hopefully that's changing. We can get them young. We can get them young, and have a bit more confidence in saying, right, here is a story that's nicely shot, that's thoughtful, and the kids in it they sound just like you, and the parents have problems just like your own parents' problems, and then this cool adventure happens. But to hear kids who sound like them, and not be loaded, and not have cars at 15, and to have a kind of an Irish experience, and then embark on an amazing adventure. That doesn't happen often enough.
Yeah.
So hopefully we will get to do more of it.
I suppose you've answered my next question a little bit there, just going into the future for the Unreal. Your plans for it is it something that you see becoming like a seasonal series where you have building from each of them, where you have these little self-contained series, almost like a little mini movie with the family, where they encounter things and they grow and I move on from there. Do you have like a long-term plan for the series kind of mapped out, or is it going to be a case of see how it goes, or see, if there's a one for a wheel, we'll continue?
A little bit of all of those things. I mean, there are infinite number of amazing adventures that the Kellys could have. They have a lot more to give, and they have a lot more to grow, and they have places that they can develop. Those stories are, in fact, roughly mapped out, and we know where we'd love Katie to go to college, or to go to, we know lots of different, of course we have a wish list of what we do. I mean, 4 episodes in a series is a perfect, it's a binge, like you binge it, and it's the same as a movie at 25 minutes an episode. Good evenings viewing, or how many of those would you do? I'd love to, and there's a lot of foundations laid for future series that may or may not come to fruition, depending on the will of the commissioners and the funders and the audience reception, and how it maybe might grow outside of Ireland, because we are a tiny audience. But if it grows legs, great, we're ready. Rodney could talk about that, but and the whole notion of people crossing from the real world into the world of fiction.
Brilliant.
What happened if, there's a lot of what ifs, and there's a lot of really exciting places that the Unreal universe could expand into.
Yeah, well, I suppose it is. We do definitely have very firm ideas of what we would like to happen. And I mean, in a way, I don't see it as being ongoing, going indefinitely, partly because of the actors aging up, basically. And then, it will become an adult-based show, which is not exactly the target audience. But definitely, we would see at least 2 more series, knock on wood. And I do see a kind of an end point, like I have something in mind, and I've been kind of thinking a lot about, well, look, where ideally would I want these characters to end up that would fulfill their journeys from where they began to where they end. And so we'll see if we get to film that destination, would be great.
Great stuff. Can I make a request?
Yeah.
It's funny. I don't know if you've seen it, or Bonnie, maybe not, but maybe Rodney. Like, there's the really great horror film from this year called Weapons. And there was news there recently that they're taking the antagonist from that, and having like her own her own movie, I thought it was going to be a prequel or a side quill or something like that. And it got me thinking after watching season one. I'd really like to see a caretaker spin-off. She was such a great, and not to give too much away, but like she was such a great character and like such great work. The acting was amazing, and just the possibilities of that character as well, up in the woods, and the kind of thoughts and the kind of motivation she had. I'd love to see a spin-off of the caretaker, whether it's a movie or a series or something. You have to make it.
Funny you should mention that.
Yeah, there was a dangling thread there from the end of the first series about her possible, return. So,
Yeah.
watch the space, I guess.
Definitely. Oh, fantastic. That's great news. That's been my day.
On the subject of the caretaker, what's really interesting about the caretaker is she presents Kevin. When we meet her, she seems kind of friendly and like that one good adult who elevates Kevin's status. And Rodney did some really clever writing around this, where everybody else, Kevin thinks he's stupid. His family all think he's, there's something a bit wrong with him. He's a bit thick, or, his sister calls him stupid all the time. He's not good at sport. He's, lashing out at people in school. So Oliver O'Hare calls him stupid. He punches somebody, and we learn all this. And the caretaker is the first person who gives him respect. She calls him Mr. Kelly. She listens to him. She considers his opinion. And then, the horror of horrors, without giving, well, this is a spoiler, but we learn that she's got very rigid views about where people come from, where they should stay. And she basically presents, and she speaks in a way that's really extreme. So in the course of Kevin's journey, he must confront really extreme views and ethnocentric views, like go back to where you came from. And something he has to overcome. And I don't know, as a mother of teenage kids, like I don't see another instance of that kind of stuff being dealt with, right? For in a safe way, okay? Because kids on their phones, they've got access to the most horrendous kind of far right, like prejudiced ideologies that is targeted at them by stealth. I mean, it's really, sinister how hard they're how targeted they are. So I found, as a mother, a worried mother, I found that really important kind of a sub theme. Now, most people may miss it, but also that kind of, there's an element to that, I guess. I mean, Roddy could maybe speak a little bit better about it, but maybe the immigrant experience in series 2, where there's a kind of a deportation theme, let's say, without trying to give away too many spoilers. But I think that kids TV, like if you want to call it kids TV, let's say, it has there's a possibility, like kids TV can do a lot of heavy lifting, and it's not often given the credit, the genre. Like we can, yeah, like it's important that it's considered and considered well, I think.
At the end of the day, mostly what we want to do is tell a good story that people will enjoy and be compelled to watch. But it is like there's such a responsibility in terms of the messages that you put out there, especially for kids, for kids stories, but for any story. And I mean, it is important, I think, especially nowadays, to at least deal in somewhat in some kind of way with these kind of ideas, because they are out there and they are quite dangerous if you're kind of led down the wrong path. Which, it does seem it's kind of horrible to think that even between the first series and the second series, this as an issue has gotten so much worse.
Yeah, in such a short period of time as well. And you're right, like it has just escalated so much over the last year, and that is a good point. It's like maybe that's the best way to get the message across, where it is subtle, it is, and like I said, Bonnie, they may not think about it, they may not get it, but there's the feeling is there, they get something from it, where they might know that these issues are being talked about, but they're kind of taking it away from it, you know. I think that's really important. You're right.
The Kellys not being from this world, like they ultimately have to argue, like, just because we're not from here, just because we don't come from here, we have made our life here, and this is now our home, and they have to basically put their heads together and argue, that they're entitled to build a happy life here,
Yeah.
So take from that what you will, but yeah, and like I say, it could be, could go over go over most people's heads, but it was important for us to acknowledge that.
Like, it is great to hear that we're going to get, fingers crossed, more Unreal. That there's more ideas there, and there's more to come. Apart from that, what else is next for you? Are you working on anything outside of the Unreal? Have you any other ideas that are in the pipeline that are coming?
We are literally are delivering the final. We're delivering the final master as we speak, so I haven't had time to think. In our production company, Die House Films, we have an ongoing documentary series called Journey Cam International, and it's a documentary series where we work with kids who have backgrounds or cultural links to other places, right? So kids who have maybe grandparents or cousins or family in other countries or other continents sometimes, and we help them author an account of a journey home, let's say, because they don't often get an opportunity to share what that's like. So we do a series called Journey Cam, where it's younger kids. They will take a little camera and then a crew of me and one other person with them, and they author an account of a trip to India, Pakistan, South Africa, Poland, Czech Republic, Italy, Spain, and all those countries. And they will take it, and they will basically author an account of, how to cross the road, how to cook, how to cut banana leaves for the family supper, how to go to a market and buy this, how to, perform at the national dance in the local festival or whatever. So it's very much, it's for kids. It's a documentary series. It's called Journey Cam, and it's a total privilege to make, but really hard work. So that's kind of ongoing for us. And yeah, most of our work is making programs, children's programs. That's what our kind of bread and butter, our vocation, I suppose, is doing that. And then we've made lots of one-off short film dramas for TV, all written by Rodney and made with the same kind of core team of creatives, including Tom Comerford, who's our director of photography. And yeah, so we're lucky to keep being able to find projects that keep the lights on and also that don't make you feel dirty after you do them. Because I worked in almost every genre of TV, of factual program making. Yeah, some of them are more fun than others, and making stuff for young audiences is generally like the most rewarding audience to make work for, I have to say.
That for myself, I work a 9 to 5, day job. So every hour in the evening and weekends is just spent trying to work on something a bit more satisfying than the day job. So for me, it's just the future of the Unreal at the moment is the only thing I'm working on.
There's just to kind of finish up as well, but hopefully a couple of fun questions. There's a great quote from Kevin in season 1 where he says, and I think it's something we've talked about earlier in the interview. TV was so random in the olden days, and like it's so true. Like I remember, and the little sitcom segments that you have in season 1 and season 2, they're so great. They're so authentic. Like it just brought me back as well watching them. And I remember stuff being just so like, yeah, you had your staples, but then you had these weird, random little. They maybe ran for a season, or they maybe had like a premiere, then didn't do well after that. Like, but they're just bizarre. I don't know. I know there's stuff like an Irish telly, like the Morbegs and One Billy Wagon and stuff like that, where it was this bizarre stuff that you were fever dream style. And then even the American stuff, like I remember you had your A Team and your Night Rider, but then you had like Manimal. I have to ask, you've obviously you've done both done a lot of research, because I see that a lot in the unreal. Like there's little nuggets and little things where I'm like, oh, that's so niche. I get it. Like it's great to see. Is there any, what would be your top pick for, like a real random surreal kind of TV series that you watched when you were younger that maybe people missed, or trying to describe it to your kids today, they would think you were just spoofing them. Is there something you remember from your childhood, or something from earlier that you just picked up on and loved?
Well, I'll go first here. The one that immediately comes to mind is Sapphire and Steel, which was the most crazy show. It's almost impossible to describe. And it was, what's amazing to me is that it was on at like, I think it was on at like 7 o'clock on ITV1, got huge audiences, everyone watched it. And it's the most surreal, bizarre thing. They're kind of like about two time agents in these quite horrific stories with lots of like very scary imagery. And so that really kind of like yeah, that disturbed me a lot as a kid, but I couldn't stop watching it. So that would be my pick.
I was a Bosco girl. We didn't have that many channels. Rodney definitely had more channels than we did growing up. I was a Bosco girl, but when we started working on the Unreal, Rodney, we were talking about Bosco, and Rodney said, yeah, but did you ever see this? And he showed me a picture. I told you I'm not great for really scary stuff. He showed me a picture that still gives me nightmares. I never saw it as a kid, but seeing it as an adult, I can't believe it was ever like broadcast. And that is Mr. Nosy Bonk. Has anybody ever seen it?
You heard of
Have you ever
that,
seen-
I've
Conor?
heard of that. Oh my God.
Google it after this.
I'm gonna have to.
Nosy Bonk was on BBC. Was it Round the Twist?
No, I think it was earlier. It might have been that, but yeah, it was. But it was kids' TV. It was very all ages. And that's quite.
Yeah, so that was, I mean, the big thing like for us was to the puka. We spent a lot of time trying to get the puka right, and it was designed by an amazing designer called Saoirse Carey, but the puka, yeah, he went through many different iterations. Even gender, we weren't kind of sure, is the puka he, him, or a they, them, or but the puka, yeah, we wanted the puka to be scary, but kind of by accident, like as if he was a sort of design fail from the 80s, where he wasn't meant to be scary, but looking at him through today's lens, he's scary by today's standards. Did they know he was scary at the time? I don't know. How did this end up on TV? So that's what we wanted to kind of lead into. But when you get to know him, he's actually not that scary. He's just misunderstood. And what I will say is, sorry, just an add to another thing, I should say we had great fun making the Irish Sign Language version, actually, of the Unreal, and we great interpretation, ISL performance done by Amanda Coogan, who really got into the idea of the puka being a non-verbal character, and there's a special sign for puka. Yeah, like the puka, I definitely think the puka, somebody needs to get into the RTE archives and dig out the old tapes of the puka. Yeah. Because or maybe I might slip one in there and somebody in years to come will find it and think it was real. TV definitely was really weird in the olden days.
Good stuff. And thanks so much both of you for talking to me today. It's been great.
Oh, thank you.
Brilliant, Conor. Great to be asked, and thanks Film Ireland for always giving us a shout out and for your support. Means a lot. Thanks a million.
Thanks so much, Conor, Bonnie and Rodney. So make sure to subscribe and like to Film Ireland wherever you get your podcasts.